بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت الحكيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. نويت تعلم وتعليم وتذكر والتذكير ونفع لفار فار استفادة وحتى أتماس بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى هدى ودلالة على خير ابتغاء والسلام وطاعة وقرب ثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وينفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, we're going to continue from what we were engaging in yesterday, where we were looking at different akhbar, different statements and different hadith uh, in regards to softening of the heart. And I don't believe I mentioned it yesterday, but we're referencing a work by Abdullah Ibn Al-Mubārak, which is actually referred to as softening the heart. And so we're referencing this particular work. And so right now I'm going to be looking in the chapter, which is on tawakkul, the reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I'm going to see if we may get to two ahadith, but we'll see how it goes, inshallah. We may only get to one for today. But this is a hadith that was narrated from Abdullah ibn Yazid Tatami, who said, and Muhammad ibn Ka'ab al-Qurazi thinks that it was related directly to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu that the Prophet sallallahu used to say, اللهم رزقني حبك وحب ما ينفعني حبه عندك اللهم ما رزقتني مما أحب فاجعله لي قوة فيما تحب وما زويت عني ما أحب فاجعله لي فراغا فيما تحب. And so there's a difference of opinion in regards to whether or not um, uh, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ directly said it. However, in cases like this, when it's something of general good, then inshallah it's acceptable to act upon it. Whether or not we have it necessarily authentically from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, we would just say that it's not necessarily clear whether or not this is directly from the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and that this is something that is also related in the book of Imam At-Tirmidhi, rahimahullah ta'ala. So the translation of the meaning of it is that, "O Allah, give me your love, and the love of those who love will benefit me in your eyes. O Allah, make your provisions, which I love, a source of strength for me to do what you love, and make what you have removed from me of what I love an opportunity for me to do what you love." And so there are many different things to unpack here, and this is why I said that we may only get to this one hadith today. But the Prophet, if we're going to say that this is something that he ﷺ has said, he mentions, "Allahumma arzuqni hubbaka wa hubba ma yanfa'uni hubbahu indak." That, "O Allah, give me your love, and the love of those who love will benefit me in your eyes, or with you." And so the Prophet, so in this particular dua, because this is a supplication, is that we're asking for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love. And the thing is that there can be no greater love than to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love you. As it mentions in a hadith that's related, and if I'm not mistaken, in the Sunan of Imam Ahmad, in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, as well as other books of hadith, where the Prophet mentioned that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a servant, da'a Jibreel, that he calls Jibreel. And he says to Jibreel, "Inni uhibbu fulan fahibbuh," that verily I love so and so, so you love him. And then Jibreel alayhi salam, he goes to the Ahl al-Sama and he calls out, "Ya Ahl al-Sama, inna Allah qad ahabbu fulan fahibbuh," that, oh people of the heavens. And who are the people of the heavens? The other angels. So that Jibreel alayhi salam goes to the other angels and he says to them, "O people of the heavens, verily Allah loves so and so, so you all love him." And then the qabul, the acceptance of that individual is placed into the earth. And so the thing is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a person, then all of the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ultimately love that individual. In particular, we're talking about the righteous servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will love that individual. And the thing is that even if it wasn't, even after that wasn't the case, what other love would a person need than the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because the ultimate reality that we have is that the only reality that we truly have is Allah. Is that every other reality that we seem to experience is nothing more than, if for lack of a better way of putting it, a mirage. Because ultimately, our whole creation, our whole existence is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, because there are other du'as that we have that we can more or less say that come from the Messenger of Allah directly. We also have the Quran itself, where we are to seek out the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the thing is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a person, then that person has the greatest love. Because reality of all other loves is that they're only a manifestation of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because ultimately it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that places love in a person's heart in the first place. And so seeking out the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is one of the greatest things, or you can say the greatest thing that a person can have, because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a person, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as he mentions in the Hadith Qudsi, is that when he loves a person, he becomes the seeing by which he sees, the hearing by which he hears, the hands by which he grasps, the feet by which he walks. If he were asked of him, he would surely give to him. And so the question that always comes to mind is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you, then who could be against you? And not only that, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about the people that are close to him, his awliya, those people that he loves, is that he says, "Min adali waliyan qad adantuhu bil-harb." That's whoever causes enmity or has enmity or harms a friend of mine, I declare war against that individual. And so the thing is that this is a love that cannot even be described. Is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you, there is nothing else that you will need. And so we're learning from the very beginning of this dua is seeking the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the love of those whose love will benefit me in your eyes. Meaning that not only do we want the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we want the righteous to love us as well. So for example, we want the Prophet Muhammad to love us. Because why? Because as is mentioned in this dua, the love of those will benefit us in your eyes. Because we know that the Prophet Muhammad, for example, is going to be the one who's going to be given shifa on Yawm al-Qiyamah. He's going to be the first one to be given intercession. When everyone else is going to be saying nafsi, nafsi, the Prophet Muhammad is going to be the one saying ummati, ummati, my people, my people. And so we want the love of the Messenger of Allah such that he will benefit us, such that he will intercede on our behalf. So, for example, for people like me, who are people who have, are very sinful, is that the Prophet Muhammad he said in the hadith that is sahih, that he said, "Shafa'ati li ahli kiba'i min ummati." That my shifa'a, my intercession, is for the people of major sins from my ummah. And so the thing is that that is going to come if you're in the case of those who the Prophet Muhammad loves. And who does the Prophet Muhammad love? Those who are trying to follow his way. That no matter how much we may trip and stumble and fall and make mistakes along the way, that as long as we have a sincere intention of trying to follow the way of the Messenger of Allah, then inshallah we will be of those people who are from his ummah, of those whom he loves, and of those who inshallah he will intercede for. That, for example, of the ways of showing that we are following his way and of the ways of us trying to seek his intercession is that we take the means to do those things that he's informed us of that will gain his intercession. So, for example, the Messenger of Allah, he mentioned that if a person recites the dua after the adhan, when the adhan is called and they recite the dua that is said after the adhan, that inshallah that is one of the ways of gaining the intercession of the Prophet Muhammad. What is the dua? اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي سيدنا محمد النسيوة وفريدة وبحث المقام محمود الذي وعد. And there other iterations of that dua. However, that is the basis of that dua. And so memorizing that dua and saying it after the adhan is called, seeking that nearness to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Also sending salawats upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, as he says, "Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna 'alan nabi, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu 'alayhi wa sallimu taslima." That as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, verily that Allah and his angels send salawats and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. O you believe, send salawats and prayers and peace upon him in a respectful manner. And so taking the means to obtain the love of those whom their love will benefit you. But also, this is also indicative of the Muslims in general, is that, our ultimate goal is to seek the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, if we are also of those who the righteous, because essentially the righteous are the ones whom their love will benefit us. Is that because the righteous, they do what? They only love things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the righteous, they love people for their nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They love people because of their striving to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They love people because of their following the way of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so trying to obtain the love of the righteous. Why? Because after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam intercedes, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow for others, and particularly the righteous, to intercede. And so this is why one of my teachers, he mentions, is that one of the sunnahs of Islam is that you actually try to make as many friends amongst the believers as possible, because you never know who it is that may be granted intercession and may be able to intercede for you on your behalf. Because intercession, it works on different levels. Because a person, for example, may be of those who may be saved from the hellfire, but they may be in a lower rank in paradise. And so a person can intercede on their behalf to raise them in degrees in paradise. Or a person could be a person who is going to be a person in the hellfire, and then a person can intercede upon their behalf and they can be saved from being other people of the hellfire, and so on and so forth. And so the thing is that we don't know who it is who may be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that they may intercede for us on our behalf. This is why, some of you who we may have met in person, that I may have said to you is that, for example, if on Yawm al-Qiyamah you do not see me in paradise and you've made it, please ask about me. Is that, we want for the righteous to have love for us in their hearts, in order that they will remember us on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and if they don't see us, that they will ask about us. Such that if we are in a bad state on Yawm al-Qiyamah, that inshallah they will intercede for us on our behalf, and that inshallah we can be brought out of that bad state. And so in this dua, this is one of the things that is being asked for, and the love of those whose love will benefit me in your eyes. And then it says, "Oh Allah, make your provisions which I love a source of strength for me to do what you love." Because the thing is that everything that we receive in this dunya, every aspect of provisions, whether it be our food, our drink, our home, our clothes, our beds, whatever it is, it's all from Allah. As if I'm not mistaken, it was in our session yesterday that we mentioned the verse of Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions very clearly, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ, that whatever that you may have of blessings is only from Allah. And so all the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in terms of our provisions that we love, that's asking that we use it as a strength for us to do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And this is what some of the righteous mention about, even making the intention whenever it is that we do whatever it is. So for example, now that we're fasting in the month of Ramadan, is that, and whatever we're at in the world, at some point in time, some of us, from places to the east, we may have already broken our fast. If we're in places to the west, then our fast is going to be soon approaching, or will be approaching in the next couple of hours. And so whatever the situation is that we're going to eventually be breaking our fast. And generally speaking, is that, oftentimes, especially for those of us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed by means of that, is that we will be breaking our fast with things that we love, things that we enjoy. So the righteous they mention is that whenever you eat a plate of food, is that you shouldn't just eat the plate of food, just happy to have the food. You're so hungry and you're so thirsty and you're just happy to have the food and you love the food, but you're only just focused on the good taste of the food. But no, but rather you should make your intention that, Ya Allah, I'm eating this and I'm drinking this in order to strengthen my body so that I can worship you. That yes, I love these things. Yes, I have a a yearning for these things. Yes, I have a desire for these things, but I understand that these are things that are only a means. That's why do I have food? Why does my stomach, have, bring me through hunger pains, or why does my body get thirsty? Because these are things that I need. That's my body has actual dependency on these things. Is that if I don't have enough of these things, then it will cause me harm. However, what is the benefit of me having those things is that it gives me the strength and the capability to go about my life and do the things that I have to do. That the food gives me the necessary nutrients and the energy that I need to be able to do the things that I do. And so this dua is reminding us is that when we take those provisions, when we take that food, when we take that drink, that when we sleep in our beds, when we, go to sleep at night and we sleep in our beds to get the rest that we need, and so on and so forth, is that our intention should be that I'm going to use these provisions in a manner that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That I'm going to use these things in a manner that is going to be something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. That even from the standpoint of the etiquette of how we eat, trying to remember that. Is that so that when we break the fast and we are able to eat, is that we try to do it with the sunnah in mind. Is that we don't eat over abundantly. Is that generally speaking, in the month of Ramadan, you should be in a state where you can't even eat as much as you normally would. Why? Because your stomach is going to be adjusting to the aspect of not being fed all throughout the day. And so generally speaking, what's going to happen is that your stomach is going to shrink, quote unquote, meaning that your stomach is just not going to be able to intake as much as it used to because it's kind of making up for not having as much nutrients as it's used to. And so the thing is that the regular way of the believer is supposed to be that. Is that sometimes we actually misinterpret the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he mentions that the worst vessel for that a human being that the son of Adam can fill is the stomach. And then he mentions that it's enough, if you have 1/3 for your food, one third for your drink, and 1/3 for air. Sometimes we misinterpret that hadith and we actually consider that to be the sunnah, that we need to have 1/3 for food, 1/3 for drink, and 1/3 for air. But actually, no, the Prophet ﷺ is saying what? That's the max. That's the maximum that we should do. That if we have to, that if we absolutely need to, then the most that we should do is 1/3 for food, 1/3 for drink, and 1/3 for air. But actually, what the Prophet ﷺ actually said that we should do is just have a few bites to keep our back straight. So even remembering that when we break our fast, that when we break our fast, is that again, the food is not the goal. Is that, for example, different people have talked to me throughout this month of Ramadan about different things. And one of the things that I try to remind people of is that even the acts of worship that we do, whatever the act of worship is, whether it's salat, whether it's zakat, whether it's som, whether it's hajj, whatever act of worship we do, the act of worship itself is not what we're worshiping. That we don't worship, as one of my teachers would say. But rather, the act of worship is what? It's a means of qurub. It's a means of nearness. Meaning that we do these things in order to try to gain nearness, to try to gain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's only a means. So even, for example, for people who can't fast, whether that's because they're sick, or whether that's because it's a woman who may be on her monthly cycle, or whether it's because a person might be elderly and such that their body is not capable of doing what they used to do, they shouldn't feel bad. Why? Because they are only going to be following the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the woman who's on her menstrual cycle, he's given her a command. You are not to fast during that time. And so by her obeying the command of her Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is her worship. That is her worship. And she can engage in other acts of worship. So she can make dhikr, she can make dua, she can do all other types of worship, but the reality of it is that it's not the worship in of itself. It's what is going to be the means that's going to draw me nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even for the person who may be sick or the person that may be elderly, is that it's not about the fast in and of itself. It's what is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's commanded us that as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned to us, inna jasadu alayka haqqan, that verily your body has a right upon you. And so if your body is not capable of it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you a dispensation. So we can say Alhamdulillah and then try to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in other ways. That your act of worship during Ramadan is going to be to give the fidyah if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with wealth. Or, on top of that, you can help and assist others in breaking their fast. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentions that the one that helps and assists a person in breaking their fast will have the reward of the person that they helped and assist in breaking their fast and not taking anything away from them. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's made various means for us to worship Him and to gain His closeness and gain His love. But the thing is that we have to try to change the way that we look at things so that we can be reminded of this. And so this dua is reminding us of this, is that the things that I love, the things that are beloved to me, allow me to use them in a way that is beloved to you. So that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that we may love, and this is something that's referenced in the Quran, is that that in the translation, the meaning of the verse being that you will not truly believe until you spin from that which you love. That when you spin for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that which you love, that's when you come to a point of true belief. And so it's related about Ibn Umar, radiallahu anhu, the son of Umar bin Khattab, Abdullah bin Umar, is that it's related about him, is that his way of implementing this verse is that whenever he felt the desire for something, whenever something came into his heart that he really wanted, what he would do is that he would go out and buy that thing, and then he would take that thing that he really wanted, that he just purchased, and he would give it to somebody else. Now, just imagine, how many of us can do that? Just imagine, that new piece of clothing or that new bottle of perfume or oud or whatever the case may be, or that new pair of shoes or whatever it is that you just really wanted. Something that, you've been wanting for a long time. You finally got enough money. You finally had the right situation. It finally came back in stock. Whatever the situation is, you finally are able to get it. And it comes into your possession. You finally have it. And the first thing that you do is that you give it to somebody else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying is that when a person can come to that point, that is true Iman. That is true Iman. Is that when you spin from that which you love, that which you truly have a desire for, and you're willing to give it away. Why? Because this is pleasing to my Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the love of my Lord is more important to me than anything that I may obtain in this dunya. Now that is a hard level to reach. But the thing is that even if we can't necessarily reach that level, at least in the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, trying to do it in a manner that's pleasing to Him. So for example, if we take that example again, if we have new clothing that we have, then at least to go about the clothing in the sunnah way. So for example, striving to memorize the dua of getting new clothing. And so that when we put it on, that we say the dua. And that's when we put on our clothing, that we put it on in the sunnah way, such that we put our clothes on starting with the right side and then putting on the left. And then when we take our clothes off, that we take it off with the left side and then with the right. That we buy clothes that are modest, but also beautiful. And that we buy clothes that will cover up our nakedness, such that we don't buy clothes that are extremely tight or that reveal body parts and so on and so forth. So the things that we do, that we're doing it in a manner that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that inshallah will bring the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our heart, and that will bring the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon us. And so this is what we want to strive to do. And this dua is reminding us of that, is that whatever it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with, that we love, that we use it in a manner that He loves. And the dua ends, and make what you have removed from me of what I love an opportunity for me to do what you love. Because the thing is that we may be deprived of some of the things that we love. And so one of the similar to what we mentioned about last week is the aspect of sabr, the aspect of being of the sabirin, is that whenever affliction afflicts me, whatever it may be, is that I deal with it with patience, and that I say that no matter how difficult the situation may be, then I'm going to continue to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Such that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes something that I love from me, then it's only going to increase me in turning back to Him. So as one of my teachers has mentioned, is that sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove from us those things that we truly love because He sees that it's becoming a veil between us and Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That sometimes we become so entrenched with things in this world that we love that we are distracted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not take second place to anything or anyone. And so, for example, and this is not to say that we won't have pain or that we won't have difficulties or these type of things, but it's to say that we have to always keep in mind what our ultimate purpose is. Our ultimate purpose is to have a close relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He has not created jinnkind or mankind except to worship Him. And so if we have something in the dunya that distracts us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may very well remove it from us so that we turn back to Him. And again, it's not to say that we may not have pain in relation to that loss, but it's to say that that pain is not going to take me away from my ultimate love, which is supposed to be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this dua, again, is reminding us of that, is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes something from us that we love, that inshallah ta'ala, it would only be a means of us doing that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still ultimately loves. Is that we always want to be in a state of ubudiyah. We always want to be in a state of slavehood. Why? Because at the end of the day, anything that we love, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that gave us that thing in the first place. So the way that some of my teachers have put it is that, for example, if someone gives you a gift, they give you a beautiful gift. Like you can imagine whatever it is that will be like the greatest gift that someone could give you that you could think of. And I'm talking about from the standpoint of physical gifts at this point for this example. Something tangible that someone gives you, like the greatest gift that you could think of someone giving you. Would you thank the gift or would you thank the giver of the gift? Would your heart incline towards I mean, for many of us, some of our hearts may incline towards the gift, but would it even be more so that our hearts are going to incline towards the giver of that gift? That we would, be appreciative of the giver of that gift, inshallah ta'ala, even more so than the gift itself. That someone would be so kind and caring and considerate for us, thinking about us so much that they would give us, this great gift. And so everything that we love, understand that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that gave you that thing in the first place. Whether it be a physical thing, whether it be another person, whether it be your health, your wealth, whatever it is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate one that gave it to you. And so if He were to take it away, then you should still turn back to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala because He's the ultimate disposer of those gifts. And so this was, for example, the case of Ayub alayhi salam, the case of Job alayhi salam, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He took away many of the things that Job had a close connection to, but that did not change his state with his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similar to Yusuf alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away from Yusuf alayhi salam and his father Yaqub alayhi salam many of the things that they loved, but it never changed the relationship with their Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similar to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away many of the things that he loved, but it never changed his relationship with his Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the state that we want to come to. That we always remember that our ultimate marja, our ultimate point of return is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that anything that we have in this world is only a temporary enjoyment. And so our ultimate love, our ultimate connection should be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that if anything of this world is taken away from us, alhamdulillah, we were able to enjoy it for the time that we were able to. But ultimately, my one true love will never leave me, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us at the muhibbeen of the lovers. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to truly internalize the meanings that can be brought out from this particular dua, and allow us to be of those who do what we do and not do what we don't do for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and be pleased in whatever state Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places us in. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتوب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. And as we've mentioned before, is that inshallah, if you don't see me in the next life and you are in paradise, then please ask about me. Inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الله سبحانه وتعالى أعلم وحسبنا ونعم الوكيل. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته وجزاك الله خيرا.